Greetings, VFX students. Hey, welcome to the third part in our cloth simulation series, and we're going to be dealing with just a regular old cloth simulation, but we're going to use a DCC in order to create it, and we are going to be baking out that cloth deformation to a Vertex cache, and then importing that Vertex cache into Game Engine, and then playing it off as a unique process. So what I'm going to be doing is using Houdini. Now, this process that we're using here, I'm going to go ahead and push this up here real quick. All right. So this is for this tech, pre-baking a cloth simulation is very good for creating a very accurate simulation, especially if you want something to be form-fitting and you really want to suck and hold to the shape of the actual position. If you don't want something that's a little bit more carefree, it's a little bit more relaxed, if you want something to look very specific, then creating your simulation in a controlled environment like a DCC is a really good idea. All right, now this technique that we're going to show you is not just for cloth, and it's really good, and it's beyond more than just anything cloth related. The only thing that you need to have in this situation or in this scenario is a constant topology. That means you can have hair, skin meshes, soft bodies. I've seen fish. I've seen chicken animated like this, lots of birds. There was a flock or a herd of chickens in the last Uncharted game that was all created using a Vertex cache dynamic simulation, and it was a very, very useful tool. I just finished with hearing a lecture from a VFX artist working at Gearbox. She came up with the destruction system for Borderlands 3, and she said it was all using Vertex cache, and it was a very useful tool for that. So this is a very, very important little technique. Now, there is a gotcha in this, is that the current technology can only handle to about 4,000 to 6,000 vertices. Now, 4,000 to 6,000 vertices might not, it might seem like a lot, but technically that's not a whole bunch when you're dealing with a high-end character. However, considering high-end characters, if you've got facial animation and you're going to be doing some high-end facial animation and some facial blending, then something like 4,000 to 6,000 vertices for a facial deformation might actually be in the target area. So this might be really good for creating high-end super detailed facial animation in real time. And if anybody's interested, check out the work of Doug Roble and Digital Domain doing Digital Doug. Really outstanding stuff, doing outstanding facial deformations in real time. Really super, super stuff. In this simulation, we are going to be creating the simulation inside of Houdini. We're going to be baking out the simulation as a Vertex cache, where they're going to be importing this mesh and texture into the game engine. We're going to create the material, and we're going to import it into a scene and then apply it. So let's get started right onto Houdini. All right. As with all things Houdini, when we're going to create something new, what do? We call upon our friend Roberto. So Roberto, where are you? There you are. Okay. I'm going to go here. I'm going to call this guy Roberto. Okay, we've got Roberto. Now, Roberto, regretfully, is not the hero of our situation. Roberto is going to be our static object. What we're going to do is we're going to create a cloth simulation that is going to be deformed around Roberto. And Roberto is going to be nothing but a static object. So in order to make Roberto a static object, I'm going to hit plus, and then I'm going to seek out the static objects. So I want static objects here. Which shelf do I want? Blah, blah, blah. Okay, so I'm going to, I want the collisions. That's what we want. So I'm going to click static object. It's going to ask which object I want. I'll click Roberto, hit enter. All right, we got an auto.network, and we have Roberto We double click inside of here and we see Roberto being referenced as our reference object. Okay, sweetness, we are good to go. Now, let's get our hero. We're going to have to create a cloth object that's going to deform dynamically around Roberto. So I'm going to right click on here, throw down some geometry. All right, I'm going to call this one cloth. Okay, we've got our cloth in here. Drop inside the cloth, and now we're ready to rock and roll. Now this can technically be anything, but I'm going to keep it nice and simple for the demonstration here. And I want just a simple grid. I don't know what this is. Get out of here. Okay, we've got a grid, and I'm just going to call this cloth object. And in order to do that, we're going to make sure that we want the primitive type to be a polygon. We're going to make sure the connectivity is quadrilaterals, and we're going to keep the orientation as a ZX plane. That's right there. But we're going to change some things around the size. 10 by 10 is a little bit big. Let's change this to about 5 by 5 so it conforms around Roberto a little tighter. The center, I'm going to move up to about 1.5 in the Y direction, so it's right above Roberto, and we're going to drop it right on him. And then for the rows and columns, I'm going to do 40 by 40. Okay, we got Roberto here, and we're ready to actually create him into a dynamic object. All right, now to turn our cloth into a cloth object, we're going to use something a little bit different. We are going to call up on the FEM cloth. Yeah, FEM. FEM, in case you didn't know, stands for Finite Element Cloth. And I believe this is using the new Vellum server solver. I'm not quite sure, but needless to say, this is the one that works pretty good. Okay, I'm just going to click Cloth Object. I'm going to click our cloth here. I'm going to hit Enter. And we got it all working. So here is our DOP import, meaning that we have done the simulation, and it is going to now simulate all over our object. All right. Now, let's go ahead and just see if this all works. I'm going to hit play. And we are getting some deformation around Roberto. Okay. Not too shabby. Okay. That's all I wanted to see. I don't want this to actually go for now. I am going to work back onto the cloth object, and we're going to do some stuff. Like one thing I wanted to do was give it some color. So in other words, I'm going to do a point wrangle sop, and then I'm going to write a little script here in order to give all the give our cloth some color here. I want it to look like the rainbow. So in order to do that, here I got a little trick here. I'm going to so at CD, and in case you didn't know, that means they use make the diffuse color equal to rel bbox. We're going to use the relative bounding box. We're going to go 0, comma at p, which means use the position as the reference to the relative bounding box, and then put that into a three-dimensional. In other words, take the three-dimensional position and use that as the color. And so there you go. As you can see, it goes from kind of like cyan to green to orange to magenta. All right. Now we've made our cloth object here, and let's see. Let's give it a cloth, a ground plane to bounce off of. And so I am going to go up to a level, and I am going to go add a ground plane. So I'm going to go back to my collisions module. I'm going to toss in a ground plane, and my ground plane is currently intersecting Roberto. So I am going to go in and move this down just a little bit, about minus 0.25. And so we let's see. This should be the ground plane. It makes oh okay. No, that moving the wrong object. I don't want to move the cloth minus 0.025. I want to move the auto dot. No. I want to move the ground plane. Yeah, there we go. Move that down minus 0.25. All right. All right, now that we have a ground plane, let's see if this actually interacts. We've got our magic cloth object wrapping around Roberto, which bounces off of our object. And you know what? I don't like the way that it bounces. It moves too bouncy. So I'm going to go into the Autodot network, and I'm going to look at the ground plane here. And I'm going to see if there's some kind of control on here. Bounce, 0.5. Let's see. Let's kill this. I don't want this to have any bounce. Who heard of cloth bouncing? Let me try that one again. Okay. Boy, that still bounces like a biscuit. Look at that. All right. Let me see if I can get my cloth object. We can get rid of the bounce on this one. The modeling, the deformation, the collision, the fracturing, drag, attributes, visualization, creation, model, deformation, rest, target, blah, blah, blah. Okay, the cloth solver. Is there anything here? Controls, enable tearing. No, we don't want that. Substeps. Okay, collisions. Collision radius, collision with the fracturing. We don't want to drag, normal drag coefficient. Nothing is popping out at me. Normally something like restitution. It was a restitution. Let's see. Okay. All right. The number of objects. Okay. Cool. Now I couldn't figure out which control actually does the job of changing the bounce in here, but what I did find is in the cloth object where it's initialized behavior, I found this where it says chiffon, silk, cotton, denim, soft leather, rubber. So I'm just saying let's just stick with denim, make it look like a pair of jeans dropping over old Roberto head, and let's see how that actually behaves. All right, cool. It looks much more sedated and much more controlled. All right, that looks pretty good. So I'm going to keep that going for now, and then we're going to just go with that. All righty. So we've got our cloth object. We have the animation working pretty well. We've got a ground plane. So all we need to do now is actually output this. So I'm going to return back to my cloth object. And then I'm going to, after the point wrangle, I'm going to output the I'm going to create an output node. All right, the output node, all I'm just going to put here is cloth out. That's all we need. I'm going to put that to display. I'm going to click onto that, and just because I like it, I'm going to hit C to bring up my color swatch editor. I'm going to give it a color of green, and then I'm going to get rid of that, and so we are able to color this green now. Isn't that nice? All right, I'm going to save this file, save as, and I'm going to call this Roberto cloth. Why not? All right, we've got Roberto cloth going here, so what we got to do now is drop in a ROP network. And then I'm going to call this cloth sam out. I'm going to double click into that. And then here it is. I'm going to drop in the VAT or the lab Vertex animation textures node. If you're having troubles finding out that node, if you're just going into Houdini for the first time, you're not going to be able to find that. Go ahead and contact me about what you think the best time would be onto that. Oh, you know what? I am not ready to play this at all because what I need to do is, okay, I'm going to save this and I'm going to go back up to my cloth simulation. And then I'm going to cache out all my cloth. See, this cloth simulation seems to take a little bit longer than I anticipated. So I'm going to let it run until I find a good stopping point. So I'm going to make sure it returns back when I hit play. And the cloth simulation is still running. And it is chugging along at its merry old way. Okay, it looks like our cloth sim is kind of like winding to a well-oiled halt. So I'm going to terminate this at frame 60. So I'm going to go to my global animation end frame, change this value to 60, and I'm going to let it just finish simulating right to the very end. Okay, there goes Roberto with the cloth simulation. All right. Good enough. I think we would have gotten different results if we had used chiffon or silk or anything a little finer, but for this demo, I suppose that this was it. Take advantage of this and try to give it a try. So we've got this going here. We've got it baked out. So after this point wrangle, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drive in a vertex. I'm going to write out a cache sop. So I'm going to see a, come on, give it to me, cache. Nope, that's not it. Cache. There we go. There's our cache information. Nope, that's not what I want. I'm going to go to a geometry file and I'm going to go a file cache. So I'm going to go click file cache and I'm going to drop that in here. And then I'm going to give it a name. We'll go to Geo and we're just going to leave the name in there, but I'm going to call this Roberto Cloth. Roberto Cloth. And the hip name, we'll call it Roberto Cloth. I don't want the $OS, but the $F and the BGO are just fine. Okay, cool. And I'm going to say load from disks. And it's going to give me an error, but I'm going to go save the disk, and everything should be copacetic. Oh boy, this has got to recook, so we're going to have to wait for it to finish cooking. So that was my bad, but the lucky thing about Houdini is that I could go back in time and then edit any point of the network along the prior history and interrupt any of it, and that usually won't have an impact on the behavior of things. And I see that there's a couple more things that I forgot to do, so I'm going to go ahead and update them as soon as I finish writing out this file cache. All right. Now we got that rolling, and now this is a nice quick little animation. Excellent. Now, one of the things we're also going to have to do is put UV information to store the vertex information on. So we're going to unwrap this, go to UV unwrap, and that's going to add some UV coordinates. And then I'm going to add normals to this. So I'm going to just drop in a normal SOP. And so what that's going to do is add surface normals to the simulation. Oh, what I'm going to do is add it to the points. So for the normal SOP where it says add normals to, I'm going to change that to add normals to the points. All right, now we have this, and we are all ready to go. And we should be ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and hit save. All right, then I'm going to go back and go into my clothing sim, and now we're ready to go. Okay, So for this technique, I'm going to make sure that our start and end is at 1 and 60. I'm going to render width. I'm going to leave that alone. The method is soft. Now, last week we worked with rigid when we were doing the explosion, but this time we're going to use soft. I'm going to initialize the engine for UE4. And for the SOP path, I'm going to go over here to the cloth object. And here's my cloth out object. I'm going to export my relative path, say accept. All right, there it is. Excellent, excellent, excellent. All right, we've got that going here. So I'm going to change the network up a little bit. So I'm going to make sure that the pack normals are off. And I'm going to make sure that the frame range is there. The project is export, and I'm going to call this cloth demo. And then for the component here, I'm going to call this just cloth demo as the component. For this, I'm going to definitely want to output the normal, and I'm going to output the color, but I actually don't need position. So let me share. I've got the geometry, check. I've got the position, check. The normal, check. Color, check. And the real-time data, check. And they should all be on. Okay, hit the save button. And then let's go ahead and render. Okay, all done. That's all we need. Now it is time that we return to UE4. All right. Oh, there's our cloth sim, and there's our vampire chick boogie wooging. All right. I'm going to go back up here, and I'm going to create a new folder. And then I'm going to call this cloth sim demo. All right, I'm going to double click cloth sim demo. And then I'm going to import my mesh. So I'm going to go to import to cloth sim demo. And then I'm going to go into my project. And I'm going to go to export. And cloth sim demo is my, let's see. No, actually cloth demo is what we had. I'm looking at the date here. That's an old demonstration. So 3/26 cloth demo. Here's my meshes, and I'm going to click on my cloth demo mesh. Open that. All right. Now we're going to leave everything on here by default, except the only thing we're going to do is remove the degenerates. And we're going to make sure that that is off. So if that's on, go ahead and leave it off. For the vertex color, we're going to use the, leave it and ignore for now. But everything else we're going to leave as default. Go ahead and click Import All. All right, we have no smoothing group. Don't worry about it. Go ahead and close that. So let's import the textures. We exported 3 texture maps. And that should constitute as normal, position, and color. So going to textures, here they all are. Here's demo, color, normal, and position. I'm going to click those, and there they all are. They all look pretty good. All right, I'm going to double click demo color, and we're going to change the compression setting to vector displacement. The filter should be nearest. I'm going to save that and then drop it. Vampire chick, go away. All right, there's the old vampire chick. Here's the normal. Double click that. All right, I'm going to change that to vector displacement. And the filter is nearest. I'm going to get rid of that. And here is the position data. And likewise, I'm going to change its compression setting to vector displacement. And the filter, I'm going to go into nearest. And then hit save. And we are ready to rock and roll. All right. Now, we've been through this before, but we're going to go through this again until the process is thoroughly ingrained into your head. We're going to go and create a material function for this to hold. So I'm going to right-click on here, and I'm going to look under material. Okay, materials and textures. Here's a material function. I'm going to change my name to soft body underscore MF That stands for material function. I'm going to double click into it. And for this, I'm going to get rid of the result. So I'm going to say output result. Yes, I don't want it. And we're going to expose to library. And for the library that we want, let's see, do I have any that are there? Incline this. So I'm going to call it Vertex Cache. Okay, soft body MF. Okay, we got that. We got the Vertex Cache. We are good. So where do we get the contents for this? Well, we're going to go back to Houdini, and Houdini's going to give it to us. All right, I'm going to change go back to Houdini. I am going to change the interface over to where it says interface normal. I'm going to scroll down here to where it says, the tab says sample shader code. Going to open that up. Going to click in here. I'm going to hit Control A and Control C to copy the whole thing. Go back to UE4, and then I'm going to paste that all right into there. Okay, that's it. That's all we need to do. We're done with our soft body material function. I'll click Save. Okay, look at that. I misspelled soft body with a capital O. Okay, shoot me. No worries. But what we're going to do is build a material to handle this soft body. So we're going to right-click on here. I'm going to create a new material. So I'm going to call it soft body M. All right, I'm going to double-click into here. All right, in order to do this, what we're going to have to do for this is we're going to have to change some things around. And what we're going to do is click on the options in our object. And for this, we're going to look for the extra tangent space normals. So tangent space normals. Okay, we've got tangent space normals here. Go ahead and turn that off. And then we're going to go into number of custom UVs. So I'm going to go custom and then click 5 because we don't want 5 of those. We go on a whole bunch of them. All right, cool. Don't forget to get rid of the search string on there because otherwise it'll make your nodes look kind of funky. All right, then we're going to drop in our Vertex Cache material function. So I'm going to right-click on here. I'm going to go Vertex Cache. And oh, look at this. We have one from the last demonstration on Tuesday, but I'm going to ignore that one. Here it is. I spelled it with a capital O. Lucky me. So I'm going to click that one. And then I'm going to wire these in. So I'm going to put the color into base color, the normal into there, the world position offset into here, and then these custom UVs, I'm just going to stack them right over to here. All right. Now we're going to load our position, our normal, and our color maps in order to populate those. So I'm just going to dock this off temporarily. Going to go back to, I think, and I'm going to grab my textures. I'm going to get the cloth color, normal, in position, and I'm going to drop those right in there. I'm going to move this back up here so I can see them. Okay, which one? This is the color. So I'm going to swap the color and the position. So this one is definitely the color. I'm going to convert this into a texture object, and then I'm going to pipe this one right into color. I know this one is the normal, so I'm going to click that one to a texture object, pipe that one into normal, and then this one would be the position, turn it into a texture object, and pipe that into position. All right, we're going to need a scalar in order to manipulate our time, so I'm going to create a scalar parameter. And I'm going to call this guy speed. And I'm going to go ahead and drop this right in here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and hit save. Okay, sweetness. We've got our material going. So all we need to now is populate a material instance of this. So for this soft body, I'm going to right click on here and create a material instance. And since this was our Roberto cloth sim, I'm going to call it Roberto cloth sim underscore material instance, MI, not NI, MI. Okay, I'm going to double click to drop into here, and I'm going to expose the number of frames, the position min, the position max, and the speed. That's all we're going to grab. So I'm going to click on here. Here's my VATSOP, and it's going to give me all the values I want. So it's going to be, we've got 59 frames, and here's our speed. So I'm going to copy this and go into UE4. And so the speed is that value that I copied, and the number of frames equals 59. All right, let's get the min and max from Houdini. Our position max equals this big old number. Make sure to copy the whole number. Don't skimp on it because it is very precise and that precision is needed for these calculations. I'm going to go with position max and going to go and grab the position min, which is right here. Okay. Now we're going to go click under there. Going to go into speed. Okay, it's looking kind of chaotic. Hopefully this works. I'm going to turn back up into here, and then I am going to drop in the cloth demo. Uh-oh. Looks like I imported this incorrectly. It's too big. I can tell it's too big because it's created a shadow over the entire thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this real quick. I'm going to leave my cloth demo. I'm going to delete that real quick. Delete. And then I'm going to re-import my mesh. And so I'm going to go to cloth demo, meshes, cloth demo mesh. And okay, so look at that. My import uniform scale set at 100. Okay, I must have left it there from a prior demonstration. Let's set this back to 1. And I'm going to import all to try to import it again. All right, now let's see if this actually works. I'm going to drop this in here. And this looks like it's going to be a little better scale. Okay, this is looking pretty good. All right. Now, all we have to do is go ahead and drop this in here. I'm going to drop it right into here. And there we go. And we have our demonstration right into there. All right. So I'm going to move and this and just going to move it up in the translation so it has a little bit more room. All right. Now there we go. There's our cloth sim, and it's looking great. Now, in retrospect, I'm not really too happy with the way that this looked. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to Houdini and try to check out what the silk deformation looks like. I'm going to go ahead and pause this and re-simulate this. All right, I've gone ahead and I've recalculated the simulation using silk as my cloth object rather than denim. And so what changed here is not actually the mesh. The mesh actually changes, but because the transformations, the position, the speed, the normal, and the color, since that has changed, I'm going to have to re-import my texture map objects. So I'm going to go and click each one of these and say right click, and I'm saying re-import, and let's see, hopefully it remembers my settings. I'm going to go re-import, click re-import, and let's go re-import. Okay, so it successfully re-imports. Yes, and it's floating down much more smooth as if it was actually silk. Okay, that's very cool. Okay, so what I'm going to have to do is eventually go ahead back and save these, but I'm going to go and jazz up my texture a little bit. The rainbow texture is cool, but I want something a little snazzier. So let's go back to something that we used in a couple weeks ago when we were working with material functions, And so I'm going to go back in. Well, I want to go back into my cloth sim demo, and I'm going to go back into my soft body material, and then here we're getting the color from here, and so I'm going to interject that, and I'm going to put a texture map in there. I'm going to go with a texture parameter 2D, and then I'm also going to go with the rings. So I'm going to go rings. Rings texture, and then I am going to put that into here, and then I'm going to change this into this material. I'm going to make it, instead of being an opaque, I'm going to say it is masked, and so therefore we're going to go driven totally by, oh, for the opacity mask, I'm going to just put in the alpha channel into there. Let's see, is this going to work? Let's see, I don't think this has an opacity channel. Let me double check. Does this have an opacity channel? We got red, we got green, we got blue, and the whole thing is an opacity channel, so it is not going to work. What do we do in this situation? All right, I am just going to go and then add my red, green, and blue components together, and I'm going to pipe those into my opacity mask. So I'm going to just kill this. Delete, you son of a gun. All right, I'm going to go red. I'm going to go add. I'm going to add that to green. And now I'm going to add the result. Add it to blue. All right, we should have a good mask now. I'm going to put that into the opacity mask. And we are styling. All right, the only thing we need to do now is rotate the thing. So we need to rotate it around so it looks kind of magical. So I'm going to put a rotator into this. And then for the coordinates, I'm going to plug into the UV. And for the, I'm going to put in the text coordinates in here. Text coords. All right, texture coordinate, vertex color, texture coordinates, yes. I'm going to go ahead and drop those in here. I'm going to go ahead and save. All right, look at that. So let's go ahead and see what this all looks like inside of the game. Okay, I'm going to make this big size. I've got my dancing vampire, which is extraordinarily distracting. But I can see I've got my magical cloth here, and it actually looks like some magical moving text as a floating and then moving around and undulating. So very interesting effect. All right, so as mentioned before, this Vertex cache technique for a soft body is extraordinarily useful. And so remember that if you ever want to go ahead and use it for some kind of deformation, it's going to be very, very complicated to pull off in game. But if you can put that off and save that off into some baked out animation, it will really make your game really shine. And that pretty much terminates what I wanted to cover as far as cloth simulation this week. Tune in next week where we're going to be dealing with water simulation. I'll see you next week.